You're watching Face to Face. I'm your host, Tim Vince, and I'm delighted to be joined by Hayley Roberts. And Hayley, you have a very full life at the moment, involved with fostering. But before we talk about that, I'd like to talk about how you came to faith, and I might interrupt you on the way.
So I came to know Jesus through a friend at school. My family are not of faith, and I went to local secondary school, and I'm a very passionate person, and so as a passionate teenager got into a little bit of trouble, and a friend in the class.
So we've got something in common then. I don't know whether I was passionate, but I did get into trouble when they caught me.
Yeah, when they caught you. But I loved school and I loved learning, so I was in the old days, top sets, and this one girl who just had to sit next to me all the time in the lessons, she basically befriended me, very kind, but she totally loved God and kind of took me on a really nice, gentle journey of, there is another way to live. You could do something with this exciting passion. So yeah, I got to know her, and she used to take me to her local Methodist church, to the youth group. And suddenly I was like, oh yeah, I get it. Never looked back. I was 16.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking before that you knew Rob Frost, because I used to do some stuff with him on Premiere years ago, but you were involved in the youth work at the Easter People.
Yeah, 2 years in a row. Would have been 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, ran the youth work with NGM. It was amazing. Yeah, I loved it.
And also Spring Harvest. So you do have a sort of heart for young people.
I still am a young person, I think.
That's a good answer.
I left school, did youth work, have done youth work my whole life. Love young people, especially feisty, energetic ones that are trying to figure out the world. Yeah,
and so, looking at it, through your lifetime, are things getting better, do you find, in terms of society and young people, or are they just the same challenges?
I think similar. I think young people present the same challenges because they're developing and trying to figure out the world. Obviously, the world is looking a little bit tougher, but I think that the presenting issues are very similar. Just social media maybe makes it sound worse.
Yeah.
We know more. But I think the fundamental issues are the same.
Yeah. And you've brought up kids, and you even used the ACE curriculum.
I did.
What was that, to teach them their sort of ABCs, to get them started on word building? Which stage did you use it?
I mean, we chose to homeschool because at the time I wasn't ready for my little ones to go into school. I wanted to still shape them. And so a friend of mine said, why don't you use this curriculum? It's nice and easy to use, but also it's faith-based. So it was brilliant to get me started, so I had no idea what I was doing at the time. So we started off using that, and it kind of structured our days and the rhythm to life. And then we started adding in all sorts of other creative stuff. Yeah. So yeah, all three of them homeschooled all the way through to A-level.
Oh really? You went right the way through? Well done.
Yeah.
Now, your choice to go down that route with your kids, was that a little bit based on your own experience of kind of waywardness? Because for me, I was pretty concerned that my kids would end up down by the bike sheds, on the wrong side of the law, as it were.
I don't think so, because I loved school.
Yeah.
My experience of school was amazing, particularly amazing teachers throughout my whole career of school who influenced me. So I wasn't fearful about it. Yeah. It was more that I felt at the time, I want to be the main influence to my children and teach them about the world and expose them to the realities of life. So we spent a whole year travelling, left to the UK and took them around the world, showed them life. We didn't go in hotels, we backpacked, and we hosteled, stayed with locals, went to projects.
That is amazing.
I wanted them to see the world before they decide what they're going to do with their lives.
Amazing.
It was amazing.
And in one sense, as you say, you're still in that game, as it were. And I know that you're doing, so we can talk a little bit about what you've been doing in Sri Lanka, another part of the world.
Yeah.
But then we'll connect it back to what you're doing over here.
Yeah, so I've been connected to Sri Lanka for 25 years. I went on a team and just looked at a project 25 years ago, and it got my heart. I loved it. So we support a project out there in a school and an orphanage, and supporting locals. Initially it was during the war, now it's relatively peaceful.
It's peaceful, but the poverty's pretty
yeah,
evident.
when I was out there last year, someone said to me, it's peaceful, but it's fragile peace. And I think that's a really good explanation of, there's a lot of poverty and there's a lot of trauma from the wartime, and still that uncertainty of what is going to happen out there. So, but we've got some lovely connections, and so we basically support them out there in their local township.
And there's a school.
There are
in one sense,
two schools.
Two schools. I'm going to gear it back to ACE again.
Yes.
Because, you know, and they're big.
They are.
Schools. I mean, I've only heard about it. I've never been invited yet, but I'm interested to hear more about how they're getting on.
Yeah, there are two large schools, one in the south and one in the north, and they are...
And you knew them when there were no schools, so they've been from nothing, been built.
Yeah. In fact, 25 years ago-ish, was out there.
You keep saying that. I don't believe a word of it, by the way. I think it's 5 years ago.
No, it was definitely over 20 years ago. I went out there and put the foundation stone into the ground.
Wow.
And then went last year and saw it all up. I mean, it's been up and running a little while now. It's amazing.
So giving kids that really don't have a lot of prospects, giving them a framework.
Yeah. Exactly, and these children are from the local villages and the local streets, and they are supported and sponsored, so their uniforms and their shoes are sponsored so that they can attend school.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, it's
great. It's great to be involved. I'm not really involved, but as much as I can to help with those, just having the material, the school material.
Yeah.
And Christian curriculum material.
Yeah.
Go a long way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, so back here in the UK, because you don't go over to Sri Lanka that often, do you?
No.
But back here in the UK, tell me a little bit about the challenge of fostering. Yeah,
so I am a foster carer, and I currently look after 3 young people alongside my own family. It is the most privileged thing I've ever done, to be able to open my home, and my family, my extended family are all part of this, and welcome in children who need love and a safe space, sometimes just for a short time, sometimes for a long time, and just give them family experience, support them and help them fulfill their potential.
And how attached you get to the kids, because it's quite difficult. I suppose short term is short term, but if you have them for a longer time, it must be quite tough.
Yeah, I think even for short term, I get attached. I think you have to, because they're human and they need love. And I often say to people, if you want to go into fostering, you will get your heart broken. You have to, because you can't put yourself out there in a fake way. So you do get attached, definitely. And
can you give me some stats on how many are out there? Because I know that you're inundated with requests.
So our fostering agency receives about 150 referrals a day. So that is local authorities seeking homes for children and young people today. And that is quite harrowing to read in my inbox every day. And we just don't have the rooms and the foster carers to take them. And that is a national picture as well. Every foster care agency, every local authority is desperate for foster carers.
And you're working with the Phoenix Ministry. Just tell us a bit about that, because you're in southwest London, but there's a lot going on around the country as well.
Yep, so we are Phoenix Community Care.
That's it. I said ministry, I thought I'd get away with it. No, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Phoenix Community Care, and we are an independent fostering agency and a charity, and we have supported housing. So the fostering agency, we recruit and train and look after foster carers, and then the local authority approach us to place children into our foster carers' homes.
And is there we've talked about the kids a bit, but what about the carers? Do they need a lot of support then?
Yeah, I mean, most people go into foster caring because they've got a little bit of a heart for it, or they want to make a difference. But fostering is demanding. It's 24/7, having a child in your home. It's not like go to work and you can close the door on it. It's there 24/7. So our agency provides round the clock, 24/7 support on the phone, but also people to come and get in your house and help you, training. It's a great job.
And the government's I've got sort of family members who've done fostering. I'm interested in how much freedom there is. Is it very strict? I'm thinking specifically, if you're a Christian foster carer, are they saying, no, you can't pray with the kids, you can't influence them? How many rules are there in fostering?
There is a lot of guidance.
You want to safeguard the kids,
exactly. There's a lot of guidance to protect yourself as the foster carer, but primarily to protect the child. The child has come into care having some kind of trauma, even if it's a short-term thing where mum's in hospital, there's no one else to look after them, there's trauma still, and the guidance is there to protect the child. So me as a Christian foster carer, I open my house and allow that child to be who they are. I don't put my faith on them, but I hope that they will see faith through how I live. That's
and what about ongoing contact then? Because that maybe there are rules on that.
In terms of birth family?
Okay, so two sides of it. One is the birth family, and then after you've foster cared, are they just back out in the system, or can you have some ongoing contact? It must be difficult if it's big numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the best practice is that if you take on a child, even for a short time, that you still stay in touch with that child because you've been part of their life. It doesn't always happen. Social workers make different decisions, but ideally you remain in kind of contact with that child. And I mean, my foster children have stayed with us permanently, will leave care still in our kind of family setup, which is ideal.
Wonderful.
So we'll still keep that connection with them, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, and I was talking to you a little about your vision to sort of expand it down your street, as it were. Just tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so
it's basically because the demand is so high.
Exactly.
The need is high.
So there is a national crisis. There are so many children in care and not enough places to put them. And they often get put into children's homes, and even the children's homes are in crisis. So I am a bit crazy and have a vision to buy the house next door and one over the road so that we can expand our foster home into a fostering community and house children and young people either in care or who are leaving care and need a little bit more support amongst us in the street rather than in an institution or chucked in some kind of random supported living in some strange area.
Is that still going on? Because it used to be a big thing, didn't it? There were foster homes and you had Bernardos and Fegans and other, homes. But I didn't know they still did that.
Yeah,
they still do. Yeah,
they do. They still do. The latest thinking is that the larger homes are not good for children. Funny that. Yeah. Have 28-year-olds in the same building. Yeah. Doesn't sound fun. So a lot of organisations and companies are going for smaller 2 or 3 bed children's homes, which is a bit more like a family home setup. Yeah. But for me, fostering is a much better route if you can include them, not just my husband and I foster carers, but our whole family, our birth children, our sisters and brothers are all embrace the children that we take on. Yeah.
And are your own children, are they probably a bit older now? Say how old? No, but they are living nearby, or
Yeah. So 2 of my daughters still live at home. Okay. They're adults, but they still live at home. Yeah. And my eldest daughter is married, but they are all really supportive, very much part of it. One of my daughters wants to open her own children's home.
Wow.
It sounds idyllic. There has been times when they really hated fostering because it was our decision to foster.
Yes.
And they are just amongst it. But we've always done it as a family and worked through those tricky times as a family. And now they're in their 20s, they're like, oh, we now see why you did it.
Can you explain the difference, as you see it, between adopting and fostering, and what that means in terms of the parents and the kids and their birth parents, you know?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So fostering, a child still has the opportunity to stay connected to their birth family in a number of ways, but ideally they keep that link for their own identity and they carry on that journey. When a child is adopted, there is closure to that, those roots, and the adoptive parents take on the responsibility of the child. A lot of people prefer adoption. Personally, I think fostering is a better way. It keeps the young person connected to their roots, but
and the
also
possibility of being rehabilitated back in their homes.
Yeah, and even long term, when they leave care, there's still been, throughout your childhood, while living with your foster carer, you still had some kind of relationship with your birth parents, because you're going to get spurted out the end of the care system. It's like, who are they? It's in my view better to keep them connected.
And without going into individual cases or naming them, you know, have you had experiences of it going badly wrong and experiences where it's absolutely gone fantastically well?
I've had one poor experience, not terrible, but one foster child who we had for a short time, and it was only agreed for a short time. She was the same age as our children. She came for a bit and then left and then came back again. And then I heard long term she ended up in residential setting and it didn't work for her. And that still makes me sad. She's a lovely, lovely girl, but her background was very messy. But generally, our experience has been amazing, our 3.
And so the birth parents, would they, in that bad example, would they be a factor that makes it difficult, or would they want to, you know, be knocking on your door and do they resent the fact that you're
I think like probably, but for me, one of my observations of the care system is obviously the care system is all about the child, but there is no support or services for a parent who's had their child removed. And so then you've taken a child away from a mum who wasn't already in a good place, and now they've got grief and all sorts of anger, and there's no worker, there's nobody supporting that person. So that is definitely my experience of all of my foster placements, is the birth families are just left to have to deal with it. And it is a shame that there isn't that service, but there just isn't the funding for that kind of work.
Now tell us about Phoenix Community Care and how you can encourage more people to engage, because you're not going to be able to solve the problem down your own street, are you? So,
no.
You know, how can you, you know, do a pitch to encourage people who are watching with their own families and their own children or grandchildren? What's needed and what can they do?
What is needed is, if you've got a spare room and you think there's a space in your family and in your heart for somebody else, get in touch with us. Because by getting in touch with us, you're not signing up to it, but we can talk to you and explain what fostering looks like. It's all sorts of different types of fostering, but we need a spare room and the heart to do it. And then we will support you and do the rest. And my mantra is, for me, is I'd love to change the world. That is my vision, of course, and belief. But the reality is, you change the world one child, one person at a time. So if you think you can take in a child for a little while and give a bit of yourself, then get in touch with us and we'll talk to you about it.
And it's a good practical outworking of the Christian faith.
Exactly.
So it's not, the Christian faith shouldn't be us just isolating ourselves from the wicked worlds.
No.
It's all collapsing and having, as it were, the perfect model.
No, absolutely.
Home. You almost need to engage.
It is rooted in scriptures,
Yeah.
look after the orphans. And whilst they might not be physically orphaned, they are spiritually, emotionally orphaned if they've been removed from their family. And so that's what I do, is open my home
and the Lord said, whatever you do to the least of these, that has to be kids.
Yeah.
The least of these, my brethren, you're doing to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by opening my home, I am so much more richer for them. So my current foster children, they inspire me, they challenge me, they spur me on to the faith, because I've opened my door to them, and it's a mutual relationship, which is amazing.
And had they not been fostered, the consequences are pretty dire.
Yeah, yeah.
I never forget, I was speaking at many years ago in Parliament, and I met my local MP, and the group was called the Family and Child Protection Group. And I bumped into my local MP, and she said, "Hi Tim, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to be speaking at this committee on family and child protection." And she said, "Oh, that's a contradiction." And I'd never heard it from that angle, because for me, a good Christian family model is the best way to protect the kids.
Yeah.
But there are so many broken families
Yeah.
you've got to face the reality.
Yeah.
And the other one that I remember, when David Cameron started the Big Society, they did analysis on the Big Society and discovered that sort of 95% of it was the church.
Yeah.
So all the metrics, all their measurements about how volunteer, because it's all about volunteer effort. It is the church, and I suppose that's part of our job.
Absolutely. It's about supporting people to go against the odds. And I always say to my boys when they go off to school, because school's tough for foster children, you are an against the odds kid. You don't have to go with the statistics and what society says you may or may not become. You're against the odds. You are the captain of your soul. Every day, step out and believe it. That inspires me. Even watching them trying to do that is inspiring. Yeah.
So we're going to have to talk to you again. We're in the last 5 minutes, but 5 years' time or something. How's it going, and whether you've built a massive
whether I've got my houses
to your house,
more
but
people,
but you feel you get enough support from the council, enough stability, because there's a lot of funding issues, aren't there, with councils?
Yeah, I mean,
and they keep, as it were, the train on the tracks. Yeah,
I mean, looked after children are well supported compared to other nations. They definitely are supported. It's just that there aren't places for these looked after children to be, and so that's
so what happens to them when there's no spaces?
I think they go into emergency settings for short term, or into children's homes, and social workers going, I need to find somewhere for these children. Yeah,
and then you have maybe an increasing immigrant population who have kids, and that's a challenge as well.
Yeah.
In fact, some come in, without parents.
Yeah, really, really tough. I mean, it is across all people groups, all classes, all nations in the UK. It's not just these type of people, these type of, it's literally across the board. And it's something that we, the church, need to step in and use our spare rooms for. That's a pitch, isn't it?
Now just tell me a little bit more about Phoenix. So how many are working within your group, the community?
How many carers do we have?
Carers, what are the stats, and where are you operating?
So we are, our main office is in North London, Tottenham, outside the stadium. But we have carers all over the country, and we travel to support them and have social workers in different areas to support them. And we employ our own social workers who look after the foster carers, and then the children have their own local authority foster carers. So do you get together? Is there any element of saying, right, we could have a summer camp or something more than just in the home going to school? So yeah, we do gather our own carers. We have events. We have the children together. We have a summer event and a Christmas event.
Excellent.
And then we have training monthly for all of our carers without the children.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you would advocate that rather than just being an isolated foster carer, to have a connection with a community of carers?
Yeah, I couldn't foster without connecting with other foster carers and, chatting on the phone or WhatsApping or meeting up for coffee and talking about the stresses and strains and the joys of it.
Now, you did homeschooling with your own kids. Is it legal to do homeschooling with foster children?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Generally, no.
Not, yeah.
So foster children are ideally stay in the school that they were already in, because school is often the main stability.
Yeah.
And the school is where a lot of the kind of safeguarding issues get raised, and a lot of teachers look after foster children. So no, they stay in school where possible. Mm. There are times when, if they've moving placement and there's no school. So for instance, when we first had our boy, for 5 weeks he didn't have a school place. So I had a merry time homeschooling. It was fantastic. But no, generally you don't homeschool a foster child.
Yeah, it's been, I must say, for me, I spend a lot of time, as it were, modelling the perfect education for kids, the best possible for my own kids and for, in Christian, frameworks. But there is another world out there. So it's been very interesting for me to learn. And hopefully we're challenging people who are watching, to sort of be salt and lights.
Yeah, definitely.
And have more influence.
Yeah.
We've only got a few seconds left. So final comments about, just put out a final challenge.
I mean, it's got to be, if you think if you ever even thought, I'm interested in fostering, or I've always wanted to do that, then please get in touch with Phoenix Community Care. You can Google us, and we'll have an informal chat on the phone. I can even come and have a cup of tea. We'd love to hear from you.
Great, that's really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
On Face to Face, and thank you for watching. We'll have all the details on the screen, and you've been watching Face to Face, and I look forward to seeing you next time.